The winning streak might be over, but the St. Louis Blues are far from being done. Let's talk about it here on Locked On Blues.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you about how the streak is over. Yes, the Blues had their first loss since March 22nd to the Winnipeg Jets last night in a 3-1 loss. I am proud of this team, and I'm going to tell you why. And of course, we need to look ahead to the Edmonton Oilers because that is a game where I feel like the Blues are going to redeem themselves from the things that they didn't do on the ice last night. Again, as proud as I am of this team and what they've accomplished, obviously there's things that I saw last night that I was not so happy about. So we're going to dive into that. But before I begin today's episode, I just want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The Blues fell to the Jets last night in a 3-1 loss. The only goal was scored by Bushi with a nice feed from Robert Thomas. Other than that, the Winnipeg Jets held the Blues to 15 shots on goal, which is not good, not ideal, especially for this Blues team that has been taking so many shots on net. And the Blues just look slow, lackadaisical. They weren't able to generate much. But I don't want you to think that what you saw last night is what you're going to see from the Blues going forward. This St. Louis Blues team did something every team in the NHL failed to do this season, and that was to have a 12-game win streak. The Blues went on a 12-game win streak, and some people say, oh, well, it was an easy schedule, easy teams. That's baloney, okay? While the Blues' schedule might have been relatively less complicated than some other teams' schedules, they still won 12 games in a row, and that is a huge accomplishment. Another thing, the Blues are also missing some of your key players, such as Colton Parayko on defense and Dylan Holloway. While Holloway was involved with most of this winning streak, Parayko hasn't been. So this team has stepped up tremendously. But yes, last night's loss, you can say, was ugly. Joel Hofer was a net, and I was not pleased with what I saw from Hofer. And I like Joel Hofer, I do. I just don't think it was his best game. And I feel like if the Blues and the Jets were to face off in the playoffs, you would see Jordan Binnington in net. Overall, this team just looked tired, and they just looked frustrated. During the last few minutes, when the Blues did pull Joel Hofer to give them the extra man on ice, there was this one shot that Robert Thomas took off the faceoff, and you could see that he mouthed a select word that I'm not allowed to say on the show here on Locked On Blues. However, you could sense the frustration. Last night's game, while ugly, while maybe not their best performance, it really wasn't, I guess, as bad as Jets fans are making it seem. Yes, it was a 3-1 win. However, the Jets' final goal was an empty netter. So again, it's not like the Jets demolished the Blues. And that is something that I am going to stand on because I was watching Locked On Jets today here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I like to sometimes watch the other hosts to kind of see what they might have taken out of the game. And the host of Locked On Jets said that they crushed the Blues. That's not true. The Jets didn't crush the Blues. The Jets beat the Blues, and I'm not going to deny that. But they didn't crush the Blues. He was making it seem like Winnipeg, had a 6-2 win over St. Louis when that is not the case at all. The Blues still played pretty well. And don't forget, the Winnipeg Jets are the best team in the NHL, right? Point-wise. I find it very, very, very insulting when somebody wants to make a claim that their team crushed a Blues team that, first off, doesn't have the talent that Winnipeg has, okay? missing key players. And I know that Jets are dealing with injuries too, and I'm not denying that. But it's like, you can't say you crushed the Blues when the third goal you got was an empty netter, okay? And not for nothing, the Jets actually took a few shots on the empty net and actually missed. So I'm just saying it for how it is. I feel like the Blues put up a fine fight. It wasn't a great game. And I knew that. That's why in yesterday's episode of Locked On Blues, I specifically said I am proud of this team for 12 wins. I don't believe the winning streak is going to continue because it is nearly impossible to win out. It is so difficult in the NHL to do that. Also, this was the Blues' third regulation loss since the break. So please, before you're coming at the Blues and acting like this team isn't good, just remember that this team has done something pretty incredible. And yes, I am frustrated about last night's loss. I texted a few of my friends that do these podcasts as well, part of the network. And I even said, I'm upset. I'm frustrated. And it's not because I'm disappointed at all. It's just because the Blues didn't play the way that they usually do. Justin Folk didn't have that good of a game on defense. I'm going to be honest, okay? Even Bushi, I mean, I know he scored, but he didn't look so great. The point is that this team sometimes can frustrate me, but at the same time, win or lose, I'm going to defend my Blues, and I stand by what I said. I don't believe that this team is a bad team. I think they're a really good team. I don't think they're the best team. But since the break, there's no denying it. And still, they are the best team in the NHL since the break. But I wanted to go on social media because that is something that I feel like I like to do now that I'm live tweeting all of a sudden. I know, isn't that crazy? But I wanted to ask you, and again, Twitter is at Locked On Blues. Does tonight's loss, and I tweeted this last night, make you concerned about possibly facing the Jets in the playoffs? Dane says that he is not concerned. Dan says, not at all. We will play the Jets with Binner, not with garbage, Hofer, and Net. I don't think Joel Hofer is garbage by any means. I think that, again, he's still, green. He's still fresh. And Binner is beyond his years. Even Binner's rookie season, he was beyond his years. So, again, I don't think Hofer is trash. Stacey said they've beaten them before. So, yeah, I'm slightly nervous, but I know they're capable. And that is a good point. CBS says, yep. Mark says, we aren't in the playoffs yet. I just want to let you know, Mark, the Blues did have an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot. Statistically, it's going to be very difficult for the Blues not to go to the playoffs. And then Andy says, of course, I'm nervous about facing any team in the playoffs. Anything could happen. Have a couple of bad games and things change. I don't like that mindset, Andy. I'm going to be honest with you. I think what the main concern for me is that this Blues team in last night's game was just generating offense. I feel like the Jets spent too much time in the Blues' defensive zone, and that was something that made me very annoyed, especially when it was like the final 5 minutes of the contest and the Blues weren't able to get out of their own defensive zone. I wanted them to have opportunities and to take chances in the offensive zone, but they weren't able to do that. I actually think the defense did a fine job for what it was, besides the couple of just not so great plays that happened. But I think they did a fine job. Snugs, again, huge fan of Snuggie. I liked him on the first line a lot. But I do feel like last night's contest was just more frustrating than bad. And again, if you were to face the Jets, you're playing a series, right? So again, it's not like the Blues looked out of it. Maybe they didn't play their best hockey, 100%, but they didn't look out of it for me. So again, losses happen. I am so proud, beyond proud of this team. I'm going to talk about that in this next segment because I feel like you and I, we just need to talk a little bit about what we saw out of the Blues. But first, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you can just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. I am so incredibly proud of the St. Louis Blues team. What they accomplished with winning 12 games in a row is something that no other St. Louis Blues team has done in history. And I do find it to be a little symbolic, right, when it comes to the Blues' win streak, that you think about it. When the Blues had their last franchise record-breaking win streak, it was back in the 2018-2019 season, where the Blues went on to win the Stanley Cup. And for me, I feel like there is a lot of similarities and a lot of symbolism for the Blues this year and what they've accomplished thus far and what I know that they can further. It's funny. You really want to compare and contrast the two seasons in many ways. But the one common denominator, the one common factor between both seasons is Jordan Binnington in net. Yes, there was the boy, Jake Allen. He wasn't having a great season, and then Binner took over. And now you have Binner and Joel Hofer. And I do find it quite interesting that Jordan Binnington is this common denominator, this common factor, when so many people like to say that he isn't good. That blows my mind. Jordan Binnington is a good goalie, a great goalie, who deserves nothing but respect. And I really challenge you, if you're a Jordan Binnington hater, let me know why, because I will never fully understand it when I think he plays phenomenal in net. Sometimes he doesn't have the best games, but not every single goalie is going to have, the most outstanding, perfect game ever. It just matters in the big moments, and that's where he shines. In the Four Nations face-off, and I said this heading into the Four Nations face-off when he was named to be the starting goalie. I said that this was going to be a huge confidence boost for Binnington because he plays his best hockey in environments where it's really competitive. We saw that in the 2019 playoffs, where he was outstanding. Nothing more, outstanding. And I feel like in this environment where the Blues are trying so hard to get a playoff spot, which I believe they are now, he has played outstanding. So again, the Blues have a tendency to play down to their opponents. And I've talked about this on yesterday's episode, but a great example is the San Jose Sharks. Not a good hockey team. Obviously, they're going to be good in a few years with all their prospects, and it makes me very nervous, but I'm just going to ignore that for a little bit. But however, with this San Jose team, not that great of a team, the Blues play down to them. That's why whenever you see the Blues play against the Dallas Stars, it's such good hockey because the Blues play on that level. So I do feel like the Blues really play to their opponent's level. And the one thing that I really enjoyed about the Blues during this winning streak was that they continue to play just dominant, aggressive, smart hockey, no matter who the team was. You saw the Blues play against the Penguins, and you saw this aggressiveness, the same type of aggressiveness that you saw the Blues play against Colorado with. And that to me means something. And that to me means more than anything that this team is now in the right mindset. I know Coach Montgomery, he says a lot of good things. I listen to all of the press that he does with media. And he really does believe in this team. And that is something that this team needed, that this group of guys needed. Having multiple coaching changes in the past couple of years, probably very difficult on some of the guys that have been here. Obviously, you have your new additions with Holloway, Broberg, Foxa, Suter, Texier, Joseph, which is a lot more than I actually thought for a minute. Well, Snuggie getting called up, but that's different. But you have those changes, right? Again, like, don't forget Brandon Saad. They got rid of him. They got rid of P.O. Joseph. So, like, obviously there's been some things that this team has done And Perunovic. But this team's gone through a lot of different phases, transactions this year, transitioning. And I feel like for this core group of guys right now, and I'm talking about my guy like Shenny, Folk, Letty, don't forget Letty was out for a while this season, Tomer, Cairo, Binner, Hofer, Suits, Fowler. They brought in Cam Fowler. That's another one. The point is that there has just been a lot going on with this Blues team to where I feel like this winning streak just solidified everything I thought about them. And that is that this team is a lot better than people made them out to be. And I believe to anybody that says, oh, well, this team isn't good, they just got lucky. You're wrong. Your opinion is wrong. I know that opinions can't be wrong usually. I think that was something that they taught us in school, that an opinion's an opinion to you. However, your opinion is wrong. Because this is a good team. This is the competitive team. And this is the team that is the hottest team in the NHL right now, despite the loss from last night. And that is why I am so incredibly proud of this team. If the Toronto Maple Leafs went on the same run, all you would hear is, oh, here they come to the cup contenders. For the Blues, what do I hear? First round exit. That's what I'm hearing. It's annoying. It's frustrating. But it's the reality that national media doesn't respect St. Louis the way that other teams get respected. And right now, I know that I had a couple of comments say to me, Hale, they're not in the playoffs yet. What are you talking about? Well, let's go to moneypuck.com because I am so frustrated with essentially why people are saying the Blues don't have a good chance of going to the playoffs when right now the Blues have a 96.5% chance of making it to the playoffs statistically. That is stats. You cannot mess up stats. That is numbers. That is math. That is literally a factual statement. Calgary right now has a 12% chance. Vancouver has a 0.1% chance of making it to the playoffs. So again, when people want to say things, at least have some factual statements behind it, because I came on here providing you with the factual statement that the Blues statistically, have a 96.5% chance of making it to the playoffs. The Blues have a 30.9% chance of making it past the first round. Now, to win the Cup, the Blues do have a 1.6% chance, which is not so great. However, anything can happen. But yeah, I'm not going to sing again. But anyways, more teams were eliminated, by the way. I don't know if I talked to you about that. A lot has happened. I've just been on such a high with this Blues team that I completely forgot about other teams in the NHL. Right now, 79 games played for the Blues, 4 games left, 93 points, wild card 1. The Wild have 1 game in hand with 78 points, 78 games and 91 points. Again, wild card 1 versus wild card 2, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Then we look on and we see the Calgary Flames with 87 points, 77 games played, 2 games in hand. I still don't think they're going to do it. Vancouver Canucks, 83 points. Oh, not looking so good for Vancouver. 77 games played. Utah, 77 games, 82 points. Now, Anaheim got eliminated. Seattle's eliminated. Nashville, Chicago, and San Jose. We finally have eliminations in the East with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Philadelphia Flyers, and Boston Bruins. The Bruins one makes me happy just because of the pure factual statement of, hey, we actually ended up being a better team 5 years later, 6 years later. I'm going to ignore that because the Bruins were actually pretty good for a while after the Cup. Anyways, right now in this Central, because I know a lot of people are saying the Blues can chase the Colorado Avalanche. The Avs have 1 game in hand over the Blues. However, they have 98 points. So 5 points ahead of the Blues is 93. Dallas, 77 games played with 105 points. Winnipeg, 78 games played with 110. So yeah, I feel like it's pretty locked in besides the wild card spots, which could go either way for the Blues and for the Minnesota Wild. But the Blues have a big game tomorrow night against the Edmonton Oilers. And for everybody that is wondering, Edmonton has 93 points, so the same amount of points as the Blues, except they're currently right now in the third spot for the Pacific. Again, Pacific, not that competitive this season. But we're going to talk more about Edmonton. But first, I want to talk to you about my wonderful friends at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed, it's all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posting on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and it helps you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where I needed to hire someone like yesterday, and that pressure, it's on me. And every day without the right person, it's a setback, and that's exactly why Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, it's all you need. I'm not going to get into too much detail because I will be collaborating with Nick from Locked On Oilers, and we're going to kind of break down the game and things like that. But the one thing with Edmonton that still bothers me, it's the Dylan Holloway mainly and the Philip Broberg situation. When Holloway and Philip Broberg were dealt the offer sheets by the Blues, Edmonton fans were so quick to call them trash players. Again, I'm not going to bore you with statistics. I've done that, okay? I have talked about that a lot on this show. What I am going to say is they have played excellent hockey for the Blues. And I do believe, call me crazy, Edmonton is not going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I know, I'm not saying the Blues are, but I'm also saying Edmonton isn't. I feel like the one thing that a lot of people forget about is the impact that Holloway and Broberg had on the Oilers doing last year's playoff run. And I'm not going to deny the Oilers, they have a lot of talent. They have obviously Draisaitl, they have McDavid, Corey Perry. But the point is they do have really good players. And that is why I do believe when you lose your younger guys, right? Especially those guys that you drafted in the first round in 2019 and 2020, you lost a part of your game that has shown. And that's something that the Oilers desperately have needed this season, is especially with Dylan Holloway, that speed and that ability just to shoot the puck and to make passes and just the quickness. And it's something that you can't find in a lot of players that Dylan Holloway has. Dylan Holloway is a special player. Dylan Holloway is a huge, huge, huge piece to this Blues team and the success that they've had. And that is why I am here right now telling you, Edmonton fans, that the Oilers, they messed up. And there is a reason why the Blues and the Oilers right now have the same record. There's a reason why the Oilers are not dominating. I know that like McDavid and Draisaitl were out, but the point that I'm trying to make is they did not utilize Holloway or Broberg properly. And that has been literally something that has stood out to me this season when watching some Edmonton games, is just everything that Holloway has been able to do for this Blues' offense, he would have been able to do for Edmonton's offense. But Edmonton never put him in that top 6 spot, right? I understand that there is a lot of veterans on the Edmonton team. So I get it. You're not going to put a young rook as, your top 6 forward. However, the Blues took a chance on a guy like a Dylan Holloway, and he's been outstanding. So again, tomorrow's game, unfortunate that Holloway is still out. Broberg is in. However, I am so proud of those two guys. You have no idea how proud I am of both of them and what they've been able to do this season. Again, everybody in Edmonton said, too much money. They're not worth it. I think they're pretty worth it, especially Dylan Holloway. So deal with it. Anyways, today's episode, a lot of fun. Obviously, it'd been nice to have 13 wins. However, the Blues had a 12-game win streak that came to a halt from the best team in the NHL. And I think that's something that the Blues should be very proud of. Again, history was made for the St. Louis Blues. Can't complain about that. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.